All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, for nearly 6 decades, the Athletics have called the city of Oakland home, but unfortunately for their beloved fan base in the East Bay, their final home game at the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum was today. And yes, I'm going old school, okay, in referencing to the A's home for so many years. You looked at today's game, it had the feel of a playoff game, in spite of the fact that the A's have lost 90 games this season so far. It was a celebration and a funeral all at the same time. Oakland is a sports town. And, we've seen them in recent years lose the Warriors, the Raiders, and now the A's. And those beloved fans showed out in force one more time to see their favorite baseball team. It was a sellout at the Coliseum today. More than 40,000 people were in attendance. And of course, they could have had more if Mountain Davis had opened up. I guarantee you, if John Fisher and the A's had really taken the part to do that, then guess what? They would have gotten that place like a real sellout. But of course, if John Fisher cared, we wouldn't even be having this conversation right now in regards to the A's no longer playing in Oakland. I've said it before and I will say it again, and I ain't the only one, okay? It didn't have to come to this, okay? There could have been a resolution that could have been made, but you look at it, both MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred as well as A's team owner John Fisher continue to be two of the most tone deaf people on the planet. The A's belong in Oakland, not Sacramento, not Las Vegas. And if you want to put a team in Las Vegas, put an expansion team there. Okay. And if John Fisher felt like, he couldn't make it work with these A's, there were plenty of people in that region that would have bought this team and kept the A's in the East Bay. You're looking at this and the fact that the A's are going to Sacramento for at least 3 years to play in a minor league park before they even go to Vegas tells you everything that you need to know about this situation. Okay. I truly feel for the folks of the East Bay. Okay. I truly do. Tone deaf Rob Manfred going out there and basically telling the folks in Oakland, hey, well, you still got the Giants. And for me, telling an A's fan to root for the Giants is like telling a Yankees fan to root for the Mets. It simply does not happen. Okay, you just look at all and you think about all of the baseball history that's being left behind in Oakland with this club. You think about the likes of Ricky Henderson, Reggie Jackson, Catfish Hunter, and Dave Stewart, just to name a few. And I think it was nice to see both Ricky Henderson and Dave Stewart throw out the first pitch today for the A's final home game. Of course, two guys that were a part of that World Series championship team for the A's in 1989. Two guys that are from the city of Oakland as well. Okay, former A's starting pitcher Barry Zito sung the national anthem today, and of course, the heartfelt speech from A's manager Mark Kotze after the game. Remember, Kotze played part of his major league career in Oakland, and he knows how passionate and what a rabid fan base that you have that supports this club. Charlie Finley, just think about some of the history with this team. Okay, Charlie Finley's A's that won 3 World Series from 1972 to 1974. You think about the Bash brothers of the 1980s with Mark McGuire and Jose Canseco, Moneyball when that took over. And honestly, for anybody out there who thinks that baseball cannot work in the city of Oakland, just look how these fans showed up and showed out this past week at the Coliseum, and honestly showed out for years. Okay, and it wasn't until recently when John Fisher did everything in his power to turn people off that the A's got this bad. They lost 102 games in 2022, 112 games last year, and of course 90 so far this season. But just 4 years ago, Oakland was in the playoffs. Okay, and you think about it, they won 97 games in 2019, won 97 games in 2018. They always had a roster turnover when it came time to pay players, but these fans still showed up and showed out to support this club. Okay, A's fans are some of the most loyal fans in all of baseball. The folks in the Bay Area, period, they support their teams. I mean, you think about the love affair that the folks in Oakland had with the Raiders both times that they were there. The Raiders don't get that support right now in Las Vegas. All right. And wherever the A's go, they're not going to get the same support that they are currently or they did get during their time in Oakland. And for me, with that said, I am really not optimistic about Major League Baseball being that viable in the city of Las Vegas. I simply don't see the people there, being gung ho to stand behind that team and support them in the fashion that Major League Baseball expects it to work. Yes, the Raiders have fans in attendance, but how many of those fans are from the opposing teams? Okay. And it's easier to sell a sports fan on a weekend in Vegas when they're only going to sit down and watch a game one day out of the week, as opposed to, we're putting this product on the field every single day. I just don't see it being viable. Did the folks in Vegas gravitate to the Golden Knights? Absolutely. But that was an expansion team. That was something that was their own that gave them an opportunity to gravitate to. I just simply don't see it working out with the A's because John Fisher is one of the biggest con men walking the face of the earth right now. For all intents purposes, you can sit up there and say he's a con man's con man. Okay, to put it in a nutshell. Steve Peter, my good man, long time no see. How you doing, man? Or long time no hear in this case, should I say? It could do well in LV if they deliver an experience. It's just that they have to provide a knockout experience 81 times a year. Well, my friend, that's wishful thinking. And I don't mean it in a disrespectful way. I simply don't see John Fisher and Major League Baseball being able to do that. I think this is a good old fashioned con game. They're going to go out there and they're going to sucker people. And honestly, for what it's worth, I'm going to throw it out there right now. It would not surprise me within the next 10 years if John Fisher sells this team. And I tell you why. You move the team to Vegas, they get themselves a pretty stadium and this Vegas market, they look viable, they look better. And at the end of the day, John Fisher exits stage right and hands it off to somebody else, which is to me is something that he simply could have done right now because we've seen the way that money has been thrown around for sports franchises in recent years. John Fisher easily could have gotten $2 billion if he were to sell the A's right now, but he's being stubborn, he's being stupid, and it's any other adjective that you want to use to describe him negatively. He's been that. You're saying Vegas stragglers will show up to some extent, but yes, this scumbag owner won't come out of pocket. I mean, listen, I think some of the people in Vegas will support the team. I'm not going to sit up there and say they're going to get less than 1,000 people a night. Absolutely not. But the sport of baseball is played during the summer. And for anybody who's had the privilege to go to Las Vegas during the summertime, there's so much other things to do, and really nobody there is thinking about baseball. And if they are thinking about baseball, guess what? They're sitting in one of the sports betting rooms at one of the hotel casinos and they're placing bets. That's about it. I think it's a little bit different for a football game because, again, it's a weekend. And for me, it's one of those, let's say the Bears are in town to face the Raiders. Okay, Bears fans could easily say, you know what? Let's get on a plane Friday night, Saturday night, or even Saturday morning, head out there to Vegas, gamble, party on Saturday night, and just go to the game on Sunday and be back on your way Sunday night or Monday morning. Because at the end of the day, how many people just don't do that for a weekend in Vegas to begin with. I think the NBA will be there at some point, and I do believe the NBA will have an opportunity to be viable in Vegas. They're going to put an expansion team there, okay? And when it's all said and done, it's going to draw people. Why? Because the NBA has stars, and you're going to have people that want to come out and see said stars. And I really do think, in my opinion, the reason why it's worked for the Vegas Golden Knights, they were an expansion team, and on top of that, they were an expansion team that won the Stanley Cup very quickly. I do believe I think their first year or second year, they were in the Stanley Cup final. And then, of course, they came back and won Lord Stanley's Cup. Yeah, you're saying this scumbag owner won't come out of pocket. Absolutely. I mean, John Fisher is one of the worst owners in professional sports. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I really do think it's a darn shame for what's happening here. You think about some of the great players that have worn the green and gold, and I can tell you this personally. I've always been a fan of the A's uniform, and I know now, we see, a lot of teams. Basically, guys are wearing whatever color cleats that they want to. There's really no more uniformity when it comes to the uniforms. But I think back to the days when the A's were like the only show in town as far as wearing the white cleats, and I really thought it always looked so cool and clean. Those white uniforms, with the white cleats and the green and gold hats, they just really uh, stuck out. You know what I'm saying? And it's going to be weird to see them play someplace else, and it's going to be weird, not seeing those road jerseys say Oakland on them, which they've done now for decades. Okay, uh, and you're going back to the Vegas aspect. Let's see what you're saying here. You're saying to make that experience that's needed in that town, and yes, you're going to Las Vegas, which is an entertainment gold mine. But guess what? People in Vegas want to be entertained. John Fisher and Major League Baseball don't know how to entertain people. So how are you going to draw those people in? The NFL is entertainment. The NBA is entertainment. And the other thing is there are so many shows on a nightly basis that you have to compete with in the city of Las Vegas. This is why I'm not gung ho on it. But then you're saying, but the owners are loving this because most of them want to do the same thing. Absolutely. This is why, nobody in that ownership room has really spoken up about this because I feel like, and we've known this for years, sports leagues have shied away from Vegas until recently. And now they realize, you know what, it's viable. But I believe Major League Baseball is late to the party. And sometimes when you're late to the party, you miss out on all the fun. The NHL, they got things kick-started there, if you will. You've got the NFL there. The NBA is going to be there. The NBA is going to be there after MLB, but I think the MLB and the NBA rather is going to easily surpass the MLB because it's one of those where the NBA, unlike Major League Baseball, I really do think they understand the entertainment value. They understand the fan experience. John Fisher doesn't understand that. John Fisher can care less about that. Most of the Major League Baseball owners can care less about that as well. This is why I think it is going to be a box office flop when they get there. And then on top of that, you're in Sacramento in a minor league park for at least 3 years. And you basically already told Sacramento, hey, if we make the playoffs, we're not playing here. So, Sacramento's about to find out about the fleece job that the folks in Oakland have found out about firsthand for quite some time. You're saying the Nashville White Sox coming soon. And, I've talked about that on this platform as well. And that's another crying shame. The fact that Major League Baseball continues to allow Jerry Reinsdorf to operate like this. There's no way in the world why a big market franchise like the White Sox should be as bad as they are. They lost more than 100 games last year. They've lost 120 so far. They tied the 62 Mets for the most losses in a season in the modern era, and they're going to have to fight scrap and claw to not have that record to themselves between now and the end of the weekend. But again, you just look at today, and of course, it was sad. It was very bittersweet, and I'm not even gonna say bittersweet. It was more bitter, okay, because you saw tears for those fans or some of those fans in the stand. You just saw the raw emotion of people and players alike. And for me, it's a tip of the cap to the A's fans. They deserve much better than this. And all of the legends who have worn the green and gold for that franchise. You're saying getting back to the Nashville White Sox, it still comes down to the commission anyway. Yeah, the commissioners have power, but at the end of the day, they still have to answer to the guys that write the checks for them, and those are the team owners. And of course, a situation like Jerry Reinsdorf, he's the senior guy in the room, so to speak, as far as the team owners go. So Rob Manfred answers to him, and Rob Manfred answers to the other billionaires in that room, a la John Fisher. And at the end of the day, all these guys see are dollar signs, and they're hopeful that they're going to get the dollar signs in Las Vegas. But I got news for you. I talked about the A's possibly being a flop in Vegas. Just look at the con job that has happened with the Miami Marlins and former team owner Jeffrey Luria. He suckered the folks in Miami to build that new stadium for the Marlins. Gave the impression that they were going to sign people and compete. And right after year one, he dumped all of those salaries. And not only have the Marlins gone by the wayside, they're even worse right now than they were as an expansion team when they first came into the league. They were they were a playoff team last year. They brought in their general manager from the Tampa Bay Rays, that the analytics guru Pete Bendix got rid of everybody in the front office, got rid of all of the talented players, and now the Marlins just lost 100 games this season. So and I mean, we saw it before when the Marlins still played at old Joe Robbie Stadium. All right, it's one of those where places like that, it makes it so difficult to be a fan, because part of the fan experience is getting behind a player, a star player or star players that you're going to see for years to come. For the folks in New York, they had who are Yankee fans, they had the privilege to see Derek Jeter play and put on the pinstripes for about 20 years. So you knew if you went to a Yankee home game, barring injury, you were going to see Derek Jeter out there. You were going to see Mariano Rivera out there. It's one of those where if you went to Chicago and you wanted to see the Bears play, you knew you were going to see Brian Urlacher at linebacker every single Sunday for the Bears. If you're a fan of the Marlins, you don't know who's going to be out there because it's going to be a glorified minor league team. And that's basically what has happened to the people of Oakland. And they still went out there and supported this team year after year. And they put their heart, soul, and passion out there for this club. And like I said, it's a tip of the hat to the fans behind this team, because they deserved a lot better. JT Ginn is going to go down in the record books. The last starting pitcher to take the mound for the A's in a home game. And of course, he got a nice standing ovation when Kate came to take him out in the sixth inning today in their win against the Rangers. Mason Miller came in and got the 4-out save today for the A's. And it's one of those, he's going to go down in history as the guy who was the last pitcher on the mound for the Oakland Athletics. You think about their first baseman Soderstrom. He, caught the final out today. The Rangers, the final opponent for the A's at the Coliseum. And I think it was kind of fitting that it was the Rangers, just due to the fact that Bruce Bochy is their manager. And, for years, Bruce Bochy was the manager of the San Francisco Giants. And people don't understand. Yes, different leagues, but the rivalry that the Giants had with the A's. And for me, I just think back to the '89 World Series when these two Bay Area clubs met against each other, and that whole San Francisco Oakland rivalry. You think about it, Raiders and Niners for so many years, and now so much of that, unfortunately, is gone. And to me, it's never going to be the same. The A's had their home games at the Coliseum. For years, the Giants were playing at Candlestick Park. And, it's one of those, you just look at the rivalry that the Giants had with the A's. And and you could look across the bay and see the Giants, or you could look across the bay if you're in San Fran and see the A's. Sometimes both of these clubs will have home games at the same time. The bragging rights between the fans, and I can't harp on this enough. And I'm not trying to sound like a broken record. We have some very, very passionate fans that supported all of these Oakland teams. Okay, plain and simple, the city of Oakland and fans there, they simply deserve better. They deserve a much better fate, and I feel their pain. I remember when the Browns left Cleveland, the original Browns left Cleveland for Baltimore. It was not a pretty sight. But then, from a baseball aspect, I remember when the Expos left Montreal. There was hardly anybody there. Okay, these people showed out in full force today, and that gives you an idea of how viable, okay, an MLB franchise is in this city. It's probably not going to happen anytime soon because Major League Baseball at this point, they've frowned upon Oakland. They've turned their nose down, if you will. If they're looking at other spots, you might see Sacramento get a franchise full time before you see Oakland. I know Portland's, trying to get one out there in Utah, Nashville, as you mentioned, Steve Peter, and other places as well. But nonetheless, the folks in the Bay Area have deserved a much better fate. You're saying, I honestly don't understand why some billionaire doesn't want to be a local hero for. Well, he's going to be vilified there for the remainder of his life. They're chasing dollar signs, and all this points to is greed. There's no other way to say it, and it's unfortunate. It's a sad day for baseball. It's a sad day for professional sports. And again, I can't say this enough. The people of Oakland have simply deserved better. And what we saw, a lot of raw emotion, a lot of support for their beloved A's. You're saying Cuban or someone else should step in and be a Bay Area legend. Here's the thing with Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban attempted to purchase the Chicago Cubs. Mark Cuban attempted to purchase the Texas Rangers. Both times he was shot down, and in the last attempt was the Rangers. He actually put up more money than the group that did purchase the team, and he felt like, you know what, Major League Baseball just used him to drive up the asking price because they didn't want him in. And I feel like the reason why they didn't want Mark Cuban in is kind of like the same reason why a lot of the owners did not want Steve Cohen to purchase the Mets. And the reason is Mark Cuban's an out of the box thinker when it comes to sports. And on top of that, we saw Mark Cuban during his time as the majority owner of Dallas Mavericks. He was not afraid to spend money. He was not afraid to show passion for his team. And the problem is a lot of these team owners, they can care less. They just want to go out there and collect a check. So when a guy is going out there and willing to spend bread and change the narrative, they frown upon that because that means they have to spend it. Because when you go back to when George Steinbrenner, the late George Steinbrenner, owned the New York Yankees, a lot of owners, not just in baseball but other sports, did not like George Steinbrenner because George Steinbrenner was willing to spend money. These guys, they don't want to spend money to make money, okay? Because regardless if they spend money or not, they're going to go out there and make bread. And a guy like Mark Cuban would have changed the narrative for any MLB franchise that he would have owned, okay? And of course, these guys simply don't want that. It's the get along game. It's unfortunate. And the folks and the fans in Oakland simply got caught up in the wash. Like I said before, truly sad day. I feel so much for the fans in Oakland. I can't say this enough. You deserve better. You had a terrible owner. You have a commissioner of the great sport of baseball that's out to lunch. And as always, it's the fans who get screwed. Oakland deserved much better than this. But folks, that's going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you are on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. Steve, Peter, my good friend, it's been a while, but I always appreciate when you're chiming in to talk a little baseball and sometimes basketball. As always, my man, I appreciate the support and much love to you. And for all you other fine folks out there, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off and I'm saying thanks once again for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.